Hello, good afternoon to everyone. It's a pleasure to be here and listening to all those amazing talks before me. So I don't know if all of you agree with me. There is so much potential in literature, in humanities, and just listening to previous talks, I got ideas for so many projects that we could apply for, and yeah, definitely a lot of work for us. So I know that since it's afternoon, you are probably a bit tired, but nevertheless, I will invite you to participate in the discussion and share your opinions, your views. So please feel free to add, to participate, to answer my questions, and I believe that we'll have a great hour in front of us. So, literary tourism. First, I would like to ask you perhaps a personal question, but still it is very important, I believe, when it comes to our cultural capital, and that is, do you have an author, the author, perhaps, that marked you significantly? So, do you have a special author that maybe, I don't know, you have nice memories connected to him or her, you have, I don't know, some ideas, or just maybe it's someone that you always return to, even when you are doing your research, writing your seminar paper, and so on. So think about it and feel free to share who these authors are. I have one. It is totally out of what I do at the moment, but it is related to my childhood. So I come from the northern part of Slovenia, and my whole childhood was connected to 𝐒𝐤𝐿. Why? Because my kindergarten was named after one of his work, a short story. Then a primary school I went to was named after him. We read the majority of his books as a mandatory reading, so that is the reason for that. If I start maybe with you, you have one special author.
I think that would be Čička. She's famous Polish literature.
And the reason for this fact is that
I like that she connects poems with my feelings.
And in what period, when you learned about this author?
Like few years ago.
Okay.
That's cool.
Thank you. Thank you. If we continue with you.
I actually can't think of anyone right now, but
Okay.
maybe after I will hear like what the other people to say, I can come up with right now.
Okay. It's not necessary that everyone has the author. Okay. Yeah, please.
Okay, so I would like to share, there is this author that I actually became aware of when I started university, and she has been important to me for two reasons. First reason is an intimate one, so a part of exploration of my sexuality, and the second one is a literary one, and it was, her novel was the first lesbian Croatian novel I read. So it was important to me in this stage of exploration in my intimate area, but also in like a professional way. Her name is Jasna, and she wrote a novel called 𝐒𝐤𝐿 in Croatian.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else with the author? Please.
I would say that mine was Sarah Kane. I discovered her approximately 10 years ago when I was doing my MA studies. This was, so to say, a first real encounter with drama, contemporary drama, and I really appreciated her brutality, but at the same time vulnerability and honesty. And reading her made me pursue a career in scientific research. So I would say that she is like the most. I wrote my MA thesis based on her translating her works, and then later I delved into the world of contemporary drama. So I would say she was drama.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Anyone else who would like to share the author?
Sure, but it's extremely basic. So it's a Polish author, Adam Mickiewicz. You may be familiar with. I know it's very basic, but like we learn his works. I think in maybe primary school some, but mostly in high school. I think his writings influenced how I view literature in general, and also intrigued me with the era of Romanticism, which is also important for me and how I view again literature.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, very important authors. Maybe I'm a bit surprised that nobody came up with fairy tale authors, so reading from our childhood. But yeah, obviously they didn't mark us that much as our maybe early teenage and late teenage period. If we move from the authors to literary tourism, are there any tourism products or any houses or any routes related to the authors you've mentioned so far? And that you are aware of that fact, of course.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay, I was reluctant to answer the question because that's the part of my presentation for tomorrow. Let's start with this. My favorite author is John Updike, and to answer why this particular author is so important to me, it was, of course, to be on the line with this summer school's title, I might say, because he describes sexual desire and fulfillment so nicely, but that was not really the reason. The reason was because he was the only author who described the world the way I saw it, and I've been seeing it. That means in detail and with wonderful language and everything. I was 15 years old when I started reading him. I have been reading him ever since, and to answer the question, I'm the member of the John Updike Society, and one of the things that the John Updike Society in the United States did is they rebuilt his childhood house, so turned it into a museum. So, and that was not the work in which I participated much, but I know how difficult it was and what does it mean to be. It's also something that is typical for the United States. I'm not sure if it works in Europe, I don't know, but that's also, it bears a title now of a historical site in the United States, not only of the museum, it's part of the American Writers Museum. So to answer the question, yes, and yes. I've been to the childhood house many times, and that's what I will explain tomorrow. By using the expression which I heard from my colleague who is into classical studies. He says that they have this expression of touching the marble. You go there and then you see where something happened or where the inspiration came from. You touch the marble, and after that you feel completely different. So, yeah. I revealed too much, but okay.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, and birthhouses. Childhood houses, houses of where poets, writers, authors spent part of their lives are probably the most popular way of turning literature into literary tourism. I don't know if you remember, but I recommended some reading material for you at the beginning. So based on that, when you hear the phrase or the term literary tourism, what comes to your mind? And you needn't quote any definitions or anything from the article, just your associations.
Maybe.
What is your current association? Yeah, please.
Maybe visiting places that are depicted in books.
Okay.
For example, during my teenage years, I read 𝐻𝐤𝐿 Andrić. He was one of my favorite authors. I loved his short stories, I love them still. So I like to go to Visegrad. I went there a couple of times to see the famous bridge and to see his house. So yeah, literary tourism in my head is connected to this type of traveling, to see the places described in books. They're so important for the story of a particular book, novel, etc. And seeing places and everything related to the author of the book.
Yeah, brilliant, excellent. So all this is literary tourism. And when you mentioned 𝐻𝐤𝐿 Andrić, there is a museum devoted to his life and his work in Herceg-Novi, in Montenegro. So it is the house where he lived with his wife, and it's a great start for a literary museum, but it has some major flaws. For example, how to introduce literature, his life story, and everything he did in foreign languages. So everything is reduced, or the majority of materials is reduced to the Serbian language. So that means that translation is also of essential importance when it comes to presenting literature in literary tourism. So it's a shame if we can't properly convey literature messages to foreign tourists. Okay, please.
Yeah, I wanted to actually address that I was quite disappointed with this house in Herceg-Novi.
With this particular museum?
Yeah, well, for this specific reasons that you mentioned, because it's quite oriented to original texts and not so many translations. And it has it's a really big space, which is not, I think, quite smart to use. The only original thing inside is their mirror, I think. Nothing. It was quite disappointing experience actually, so I would put it as maybe a bad example of
as a bad example.
Yeah, for now. I mean,
it has lots of room for improvement. Yeah, and it really is a great example of how important translations are and how important is interpretation in literary tourism in particular. So it's not enough if you just have a house and if you don't have the contents. The contents are essential.
A small correction. That's not the house where he lived with his wife. That's the house for summer, where he spent summer. And I understand that this is the place where the conferences and other events are happening. But the museum is in Belgrade. In his home, in his flat, is one museum, and I think that it's. Do you remember where the translations? I'm almost sure that there were translations and a lot of material from his. That's the place where he lived with he himself and with his.
Yeah, but I don't know whether 13 or 16 years when his wife was already quite sick. They spent in Herceg-Novi with Milica Babic, so it is his house. But yeah, definitely the majority of the materials are in Belgrade. But still, and the official representation is as their house. So they do not represent this house in Herceg-Novi as a summer residence, for example, although it probably was for some period of time, but it is supposed they lived there for more than 10 years. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, Any other association to literary tourism? Anything else that comes to your mind? So definitely, literary tourism is a form of cultural tourism. In scientific literature, if you decide to do your own research, you will also very often find the definition that literary tourism is a part of heritage tourism, because very often literary tourism is referred to past literature. But I would really like to emphasize that literary tourism is not related only to dead authors, but also, and this is very much encouraged, to living authors. So it is not a precondition that the author is dead so that it can be included in the literary tourism offer. And of course, the term refers to traveling to places represented to things that are in fictional and non-fictional literary texts. So, as you mentioned, everything that is associated with authors' lives and places that are produced to celebrate literature and its authors. So, I particularly like the last definition by MacLeod, who says that literary tourism is all the traveling under the influence of literature. So if you read a book and it inspires you to travel, that is also literary tourism. When it comes to this term, we have three major points of references, and these are, of course, the place itself, the landscape if you want, then the personal cultural capital of the people who will seek out the geographical place. That's why I asked you about your authors, your favorite authors, authors that influenced you, because it's really very important what is in our reading luggage. So what is our past reading, because this very much influences also how we travel, where we travel, which places we pick. And of course, the third thing is practices that took place there in past times. Literary tourism is important for all of us because it is a trend that is increasing, and it has a great potential. And why am I claiming that? Because according to United Nations World Tourism Organization, that is now called just UN Tourism, more than 40% of tourists are interested in cultural tourism. So, and this number is really reduced. If we consider culture in its broadest term, then this number is even huger. So we also, some numbers even go up to 87%. So it's really a huge potential in literary tourism. And of course, it is an increasing trend also because it is in line with post-humanistic understanding of tourism. I don't know how much are you familiar with theories of post-humanism, but just shortly, you are aware that post-humanists emphasize that humans shouldn't be in the center of everything. So combining traveling with everything living, which is possible if we do hiking in the nature, if we go, I don't know, mountaineering. This is really one of the important trends. What you have here are some books that are a result of research in literary tourism at our university. and in this particular cultural tourism as a tool for sustainable development of rural areas. This is a book that is a result of research in one of our bilateral projects between Montenegro and Slovenia. And this is, so what we did is we researched potential for development of literary tourism in Slovenia, in Montenegro, and all the way between both countries. And here is a completely new thing. It's a handbook for students and supervisors, published in July, so this summer. If you are interested in literary tourism and maybe don't know how to start your research, my colleagues from the UK, Portugal, Italy, and myself, we've created a handbook in which we offer information where to start reading, how to create research questions, and so on and so forth. So this is the table of contents. And of course the book is freely available, so you can just download it if you're interested. Now, the relationship between tourism and literature. It's becoming more and more important. Also in Slovenian tourism, from this February on, we have new literary products. So the first literary product in Slovenia was Slovenian Writer's Trail. It is a product that is well built in theory, maybe a bit less in practice, because really the whole of Slovenian ethnic territory is covered, and that means a lot of stakeholders. And when it comes to different stakeholders, you probably all know that it is very demanding to connect everyone to work together and to go into the same direction, because sometimes the interests of the people involved are very different. But it is an interesting literary product. And inside this Slovenian Literary Writers' Trail, there are 104 birdhouses of writers that you can see on the map, and if you're interested, you can visit these birdhouses. From this year on, another official literary tourism product in Slovenia is Minatis Trail. So you can take a cup of Minatis coffee in Slovenske Konjice. It is something new. And there is a coffee shop that offers Minatis coffee in Slovenske Konjice, and this is part of the destination Rogla Pohorje, so one part of Slovenia. So things are moving forward, and literature is becoming more and more important, but the fact remains that tourism and literature have quite a complex relationship, and it is important, however, to develop literary tourism not only because of the revenue that people can make and the branding, but also there are other positive effects and impacts of literary tourism. And before I go to the next slide, I would like to hear your ideas. Which positive sides of literary tourism do you see? Or what comes to your mind?
Surely a different point of view of the city, because perhaps if you go to a city where there's a lot of tourism, like let's say Barcelona, and then you just like check the main museums or architectural sites, then I think that literary tourism would be even more interesting, because you would see a different part of the different side, let's say, of the city. And on the other hand, for smaller cities, it's very interesting because you may attract tourists to a place that is maybe not so explored.
Exactly. And what you pointed out, so attracting tourists to places that are maybe not so popular on tourist map is, that is one of the reasons that literary tourism has actually become one of the important tools in tourism. So it is a tool that helps bringing tourists from crowded people, from crowded places, crowded attractions to less crowded ones. You know that many places face over-tourism, and this has become a big problem in many places, while some places don't know how to put themselves on the map, and literary places, literary attractions are one of the possibilities. Yes, and also the other thing you've mentioned, so seeing a city, a town, a place, landscape from a different perspective, this is very important. So literature has a lot to do with identity, probably you agree. And visiting literary places is really something unique. Try to remember when you last visited a famous city, a famous attraction, what did you see? It happens that in many city centers, yeah, they have great architecture, but more and more often in these great city centers we see the same shops, so the same brands. So basically it's all becoming almost the same. And literature offers place for differentiation. So Ljubljana has some authors that you can't find in Vienna. Of course, there are also authors who are in Ljubljana and Vienna and so on. But literature, authors, this is something that makes a place different, and it is essential. Other reasons why literary tourism would be a useful tool.
Maybe it can even make people create something that it can inspire them, so they make art on their own, maybe write something, because they are in a place that inspired the writer, so it may inspire them as well, if it's like curated in a good way.
Yeah, exactly. And this is another very, very important thing. So inspiring people's creativeness, especially in the ages when technology can do the majority of things, when we are, when all the processes basically are intertwined with technology. So inspire creativity to write or to draw something, or to be creative in some other way. Yeah, maybe literature can inspire somebody to dance, to draw. It's not only about writing, exactly. And this is essential and very often neglected when it comes to, not only to tourism, but also when it comes to education. Yeah? Any other idea or suggestion?
Maybe literary tourism can make people who are not in literature that much, when they visit some place like building, like restaurant or museum, can make them more interested in literature or more familiar with some author they didn't heard about before.
Exactly, and again, in the digital age, encouraging reading, maybe just some short excerpts of texts is very important, very healthy for our brains, for everything, for developing critical thinking perhaps, for educational purposes. So despite the fact that maybe a work is fictional, we can still learn about a certain period, about people, about habits maybe. So yeah, any other idea? Okay, thank you. I believe that we've mentioned the most important things why literary tourism is really an important tool. Here are the reasons according to research literature. So, contributing to literacy. So nowadays people read less and less. Contributing to critical thinking and creativity. Yeah, these are all essential things. Then reflection on positive vocational actions. So reading can be also, literary tourism can be incorporated well in different ways also to enrich education and educational practices. And encouraging in-depth reading. So it happens that many people, even when they are reading a novel, they are just skipping through, maybe not reading everything because it's boring, because it's hard to concentrate. So literary tourism can encourage people to start reading again, even if they stopped after they finished formal schooling. Literary tourism is also closely connected to another concept, to slow tourism. Are you familiar with this term?
So, I've heard of fast tourism.
Yeah.
And mass tourism. Yeah.
Fast tourism and slow tourism is on the contrary of fast tourism. It encourages training, but traveling with trains, with slow transport, biking, also hiking, and slow food as well, so slow meals. And there is a whole community of slow tourism cities. The movement actually started in Italy, and now they have the whole guidebook of rules how to become a slow tourism city. But the point is that everything, or the slow cities are trying to be green and encourage green traveling. And of course, this is another thing you already mentioned, so understanding a culture. So understanding a different culture, especially if you are traveling to a culture that is different from your own. So by visiting literary tourism attractions, by, of course, listening to proper interpretation by professional tourist guides, in this case you can get a lot of knowledge about the culture and its people, also about the language. There are also economic benefits, as we mentioned, so moving tourists from more crowded areas to less crowded areas, and consequently also moving the revenue and giving some places options to earn. There are famous literary tourism products, especially literary tours. I've mentioned that museums are probably still the most popular form of literary tourism products. Another very popular literary tourism products are literary routes, whichever pronunciation you prefer. And they are very popular for several reasons, because they offer enjoyment, especially if you decide to walk, if you decide to take a route, maybe by your bike. They, for tourism destinations, increase visibility in the tourism market, introduce less known attractions, This is something we already mentioned. Bless you. They have the ability to improve the destination image. And of course, once again, they have become a very important tool for attracting cultural tourists. Here are some of the most famous literary routes. As you see, the majority of them is in the UK, because this is the place where literary tourism is probably most developed, followed by France, Italy as well. Also, Portugal is quite active when it comes to literary tourism research and designing new literary tourism products. And of course, these tours very often come with phone apps, mobile apps. So the majority of these products are digitalized, so it's very easy for you to go around and educate yourself and enjoy these products, even if you prefer traveling on your own or in small groups, if you like to avoid big traveling groups. So, to conclude, do you have any ideas after our discussion what could be turned into a literary tourism product?
Not really like the product, but maybe the methods, because I study cultural anthropology and I see like a great potential in merging those two things together, because like through the anthropological lenses, I think we can try to here create some like literary route or something that just like tries to see the literature and the culture together in a different point of view. So I feel like it would be maybe an interesting experiment for it to like coexist together, these two disciplines.
Yeah, and co-create something.
Co-create, yeah.
Through ethnography, perhaps.
Yeah.
So, do you use ethnography as well in your research? Yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts, ideas, questions, perhaps?
I got the idea when I was reading the literature for this part of the summer school to maybe make a route, since I'm from Dalmatia, but not on the coastal part of Dalmatia, because it's pretty much already crowded with tourists, but Dalmatinska Zagora is like part of Dalmatia, which is not near to the sea, but there are many authors in Croatian realism and modernism which write of those parts, and I think it would be an interesting trail to walk or go cycling or whatever through those parts, inspired by some texts from those periods.
Yeah, brilliant, and thank you for sharing. So, definitely that is a brilliant idea and the goal. So, as you pointed out yourself, there is not a good idea, or it wouldn't be a good idea to have another tourism product in the coastal area, because it's already too crowded. But if we want to think sustainably, then your idea is perfect. So in the hinterland of Dalmatia, and there are plenty of authors who can inspire different activities. And another important thing, so literary tourism is not only about reading. Literary tourism is not only for those who are in love with literature, who take tons of books with them on vacations. Literary tourism can be combined with agricultural tourism, with gastronomy tourism, wine tourism, different activities. But yeah, all these can be inspired by literature and by different authors. Yeah, a brilliant idea. Thank you. Anything else? Any other idea?
Well, it can happen in any season. You don't have to go there. You can go to the coast in Dalmatia, but not in the peak of the season. So
Exactly. Yeah.
For the cultural reasons.
Yeah. Another very important thing. And one of the reasons why literary tourism is an increasing trend in tourism. Yeah.
Yeah, but we started like this discussion by saying our personal relations to writers, or like why some of us visited some places because we were really personally attached to a book or a world or a writer depicted. And then we started using a lot of these terms such as literary products, tourism industry and stuff like this. And I kind of felt intimately offended with this, like imagining my favorite book being a part of this industry. And I can see that this bringing like literary tourism to rural places, it can be in a way offensive because people are really attached to these either books or writers. So, and I have not heard during your presentations any downfalls of literary tourism. So if you could point out some of the things that we should be careful when thinking in these terms, that are actually part of the global tourism, capitalist industry and everything, and which is also like not that intimate when it's put in this way as you presented. So if you could put out some downfalls and some things that we should worry about when thinking in this terms.
Yeah, thank you very much for your comment and for bringing this up, because it is true, I concentrated only on positive effects and positive sides of literary tourism. And of course, tourism is not only a positive thing. So yeah, we have to be really careful when it comes to creating new literary tourism products or any tourism products. And whenever we are creating a new literary product, we always have to work with the community. So there is no sustainable tourism product and no sustainable literary tourism product if we don't work with the community. So when it comes to literary tourism, what does that mean? It means to work and discuss everything with the people who live there, with the relatives, with the museums, so with everyone who is affected with the fact that we are trying to develop a new literary tourism product. Yeah. And even when all the stakeholders, the community, decides for a new literary tourism product, for example, then it has to be negotiated when, in what ways, what are the interests of the local community. Yeah, and these are the foundations. So if we want to have successful tourism, it always has to be developed together with the community. And that is the only way that tourism can be sustainable. So there is no way we can talk about sustainable tourism if just somebody from the top decides, okay, here we have this great house, here we have a museum, and if there is no discussion, no way that this has the potential to become a successful tourism product. Yeah. And of course, there is a big debate when you ask about some negative effects. A big debate about visiting funerals and graveyards. So graveyards are one of the popular spots when it comes to literary tourism. And a great ethical debate is whether this is ethical or not. So we are talking about a graveyard, and this is meant for people to have the final piece. So there is a big question whether it is polite, whether it is proper that we bring tourists to such places. And of course, as I said, the ground rule is that every tourism product, also literary tourism product, has to be developed together with the community. Okay? This is the golden rule. And when we talk about sustainable tourism and sustainability in tourism, people who are in charge for developing tourism and tourism products and preparing strategies are more and more aware of this. So there is no real tourism without involving the community. Okay, any other question? Comment?
Mine is really just a comment, and I don't know if it's useful in any way, but it's something that's been bothering me when it comes to this concept of literary tourism, is that it seems to me that it could promote sort of a stereotypical view of literature and an autobiographical view, which was dominant in the theory, literary theory in the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century, but we have kind of broadened the spectrum of the ways in which we talk and regard literature, and it just kind of seems to me that this could be regressive in a way, to just lead us back to this autobiographical, the author is the answer, here is his house, this is where he was born, this is where he wrote his first novel. So I'm not sure that this would be
Something positive.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it happens a lot when it comes to developing literary tourism products, because, as I mentioned, it is important that experts are involved in developing of these products. So it's not enough that people who work in, for example, in the tourism office in Ljubljana decide, okay, here we have another author, we totally forgot about her, let's create a new literary tourism product. Experts have to be involved. So people who know about literature, then good linguists, translators, so that, and in the end, professional tourist guides. Otherwise it can happen that the literary tourism product is a total catastrophe. And it can happen that that everything is reduced to stereotypes. Yeah, that's why, of course, we only had, I don't know, 45 minutes, 1 hour to discuss this, but this is a huge topic, also related to new media, technology, film tourism, screen tourism, so a lot of factors, but it is essential, yeah, it can't be done just like that. So a lot of experts have to be involved. Okay, we have to, I believe, call it an end, yes, but definitely you are welcome with your questions, comments in the discussion and later on, and you are free to reach me via email if you need any help or any further clarification. Thank you.